Okay, so before we kick things off, I think we'll do a little bit of introductions and then I'll just share what we plan to cover in today's session. And I'll go ahead and kick off intros. Hi, everyone. My name's Alicia Makaisa. You can call me Alicia. My pronouns are she, her, hers. So I'm actually the consultant on the Smart City PDX community leads work. Gosh, Christine, I'm trying to count. This is my fourth time actually working with the city of Portland through this model. The first year I ever engaged with this model was as a community lead myself. And then I've come back to support with like management and strategy on the project. And of course, to collaborate with all of the awesome community leaders that we bring into this opportunity every year. So if you're selected as a community lead, or if you decide to pursue the opportunity, you'd be getting paid through my consulting company. You'd have the contract with my consulting company, and I would really collaborate with you to work with the City of Portland and Smart City PDX as your client. Then just additional information about me. I'm a Pacific Islander community organizer. I have a background in public health and social welfare, but really all of my work is powered by having relationships with community and making both community experiences and power visible in a lot of the work we do, like this data justice work with Smart City PDX. So I'm excited to be here. And Adil, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction.
Yeah, wonderful. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. My name is Adil. I use she, her pronouns. I am a project manager with Smart City PDX. It's actually my first time being a part of this community leads cohort. And so I'm so excited to be involved in the process and to really get to know y'all. So yeah, I will pass it on to Christine.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see so many people here this afternoon. My name is Christine Kendrick. She, her. I am in the role as Data Services Manager with our Smart City PDX program, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what those names mean and what we do. But in this role, I'll be working really closely with everyone that participates in the Community Leads cohort, walking through a lot of different content that our Smart City PDX program and data services projects work on. Getting into the weeds in engagements and helping out and looking at data. And I have been helping run this program since the very beginning of our various iterations. So it's really been exciting to see it grow and learn. And we always learn a lot every time we do it. So looking forward to that still now.
Thanks, Christine. And if folks, you have the option to just introduce yourself in the chat if you want to share your name and pronouns. But otherwise, we'll save your talking parts for the Q&A at the end. So just a quick review of how we're going to spend about the next hour together. We'll give y'all background on, well, what is Smart City PDX? Where does the program sit within the city's work? And then talk a little bit about the data services and data justice focus that we're going to have this cohort. Then we're going to talk specifically about the community leads. So what is this model? Why did Smart City PDX decide to pursue and really continue this model? And then I'll close this up by talking about this year's opportunity. So you'll get a preview as to what the major focus areas will be of the community leads. And really, I hope to provide some clarification on the type of folks that we're looking for when it comes to fulfilling these community leads positions. And then we hope to leave about 20-25 minutes towards the end to just do an open Q&A. If y'all have absolutely any questions about the opportunity, or if there's anything you'd like us to clarify, that'll be your time to ask. So that's what our time looks like together. So I will kick it over to Christine to get us started.
Okay, great. So let's start off with what is Smart City PDX? So this is a City of Portland program where we partner with communities and focus on making our city a place where data and technology are used to improve people's lives and support digital and data justice with a focus on underserved communities. So you might have heard the term smart cities before, and maybe you think of lots of distributed sensors, Internet of Things, AI, lots of piloting and emerging technology. And those are things that we think about But really, since the beginning of our program, we realized we really needed to get a data foundation in place for City of Portland. So we've always led with the idea that we need to partner with communities, that this program needs to serve those that are typically left behind from advances in technology and data. And then really realizing that so much of those technologies are based on data collection, data management, data use. And so where are those benefits of data really going? So that is a little bit general about our Smart City PDX program. I think we officially became Smart City PDX in 2016. So we've been around for a little bit, but not too long. The program is based in the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability within the City of Portland structure, but we work citywide. So we have really close partnerships with a lot of other teams like the Office of Equity and Human Rights, Office of Management and Finance, Bureau of Technology Services, Community Safety Division. But really, we do partner across the entire organization. So it's about partnering with communities, but then also partnering citywide in our work to help deliver our goals. Specifically, you'll hear a lot about the focus of this year's cohort is on projects that are active in our data services elements of Smart City PDX. And so data services is a collection of projects and a kind of another program under Smart City PDX where we are working on trying to provide centralized modern data management services to city staff and any partners that the city work with that are collecting, using, analyzing, and sharing data. So we really want folks, again, whether it's city staff, community partners, contractors, to feel supported, to know what tools are available, what standards are in place, and policies when they're collecting data, when they're analyzing it, using it, knowing where to store it, and sharing it back out, and making sure that that data truly becomes that community asset that data can be. We have a couple of different elements that are under this data services umbrella. We provide citywide data governance. We run a citywide data governance committee. We have a rescue plan data and equity strategies project where we provide comprehensive performance and data management approach for all of the city's rescue plan ARPA investments. We have a community safety data project where we are also applying comprehensive data management approaches to a variety of community safety data. Community governance partnerships, which is this community leads model that we're here to talk about today. We also run a data team model where we're actually trying to test out different models for how data analysts work together at the city, and how do we create some culture of kind of support, making sure that there is overlap and redundancy. So we're thinking about culture change within our organization and, of course, in how we interact outside of it. We also help with various ad hoc requests when it comes to data analysis. I have this project, we need rules about internal data sharing. So we jump in and help with a variety of projects. And I share, this is really high level on a lot of big different pieces of work, but these are projects that you would be introduced to and get to know and be involved with as part of the community leads cohort. To try to kind of summarize though, and think about the breadth of the work that is happening right now in data services, we often show and talk about this modern data management iceberg. So a lot of times at the City of Portland, we only get the chance or get resources to work on dashboards or data visualizations. And that is that really visible part of the iceberg. A lot of people, if you are around data, know what a dashboard is. We're seeing it be used a lot. But in order to really make that dashboard useful, to make sure that it's sustainable and there's good quality data going in, we've actually thought about what the user needs in that dashboard, that there can be automation and that dashboard can live on and be supported. You really have to invest in a lot of the hidden elements of modern data management that we often don't get a chance to work on. That's things like governance, policies, data standards, workflows, technology investments. So what are those tools to really enable some more modern data sharing and data pipelines so that we could have some automated processes and have really good code documentation and sharing of that? And then also support. There's a lot of people support that also needs to be invested across the spectrum of modern data management. So that's what our program does. We provide support, we build tools, we implement, and we help kind of advise and consult on a variety of pieces across this whole spectrum. So that's a big overview. Obviously, we would get into a lot more detail in onboarding and orientation if you're brought on as a community lead. But that's a quick introduction. And now I'm going to pass it to Adil to talk a little bit more about the evolution of the community leads cohort.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. So the community leads cohort has had different names throughout the years, but essentially the work that's been done has been the same. It started off with the Equity Consulting Advisors Group in 2019, which I believe Alicia was actually a part of. And so there were 3 or 4 community members involved, and they worked on FRT, facial recognition technology, and other sort of data justice, digital justice issues. And as a part of the group, these leads were able to provide perspective and recommendations for how the Smart City PDX team and also how other city staff could really collaborate with communities on unique technology and data justice issues and concerns. So that was the first start of it. And then in 2020, we had the COVID-19 Response Digital Divide Work Group, and this specifically was focused on addressing the digital divide within communities in Portland. And so as a part of this effort, folks were brought in from the community in order to really provide digital resources and services. And in fact, I believe over 9,000 Portlanders were actually served and provided internet and other tech services, which is really amazing. And so now we have the community leads cohort, which is continuing on this effort of sort of working on data and technology issues and policymaking and programs, which is really exciting and what you all will hopefully apply for and maybe be a part of. Could you go to the next slide? Yeah, and so why is this model needed? Of course, cities face a lot of challenges, right? In order to develop data and technology projects and policies for the communities that are in the city. And so there's 4 reasons that we've listed here for why this model is needed. For one, there's so many rapid changes in technology, right? It really requires the fact for cities to be able to adapt, to be able to innovate, and to really be able to learn quickly. There's also a lack of structure when it comes to data and technology, specifically around policymaking and program development. Also, transparency. Not a lot of Portlanders really know too much about technology program decisions and policy making. And so this is our way of really bridging that gap and really trying to provide transparency on what the city does. And then lastly, inclusion. As a part of equity, it really requires communities that are experiencing the greatest technological harms to really be involved and play a role in the process. But oftentimes they are very underrepresented, under-resourced. And so throughout this model, we're really hoping to get folks that aren't normally brought to the table at the table. Yeah, and so some examples of past works. We had the surveillance technology policy development. And so with this, community leads help design and participate in series of public workshops and modules for policy development. They also help hold the city accountable to utilizing community feedback at every stage of the policy development process, and then also implemented an additional 6 culturally specific privacy and surveillance community events. And then for the rescue plan open data portal design, community leads participated in dashboard design sessions and told us about what information communities in Portland would like to see in the portal, and really helped create context to improve that accountability process and to really reduce the risk of harm. Yeah, and so lastly, why do we use this model? Because it really does lead to changes in the ways that policy is made and how project and program development is done. It also really expands our team capacity in a more thoughtful and meaningful way. We're able to invest in communities and build deep, long-lasting relationships. And then also at the end of the day, it's a very transformative experience, not only for the community leads, but also for the city staff that are involved as well. And then I will pass on the next part to Alicia.
Awesome. Thanks, Adele. We can go to the next slide. All right, so y'all heard a little bit about what Smart City PDX is, some of the work that we've done with community leads in the past. So I'm just going to wrap us up here to talk about this year's focus. So first, I want to say, if you're hearing all this technical language and you're like, don't know if this data justice opportunity is for me, I want to pause you right there. I think these next few slides are going to be really important. So I'll say, prior to starting with Smart City PDX, I also didn't consider myself a data person, right? And so I think maybe a more accessible way to think about the work that we're doing this year is helping us tell the story of, one, how do our communities, particularly our most impacted communities, experience life in the city and in their various neighborhoods? And one, is the city, properly serving these communities who have historically experienced life on the margins, whether that's communities of color, folks who are houseless, people with disabilities, low-income folks. And so when we're talking about data, and all of these different pieces around data, what I really want to emphasize to you all is we're really looking to partner with folks who can help us tell a story, a more equitable, life-affirming, inclusive story about the many communities who experience life in Portland. If there's anything you take away from today, that's what I want y'all to take away from this conversation. But all of that's to say, these are the main buckets that the community leads will focus on. So one is a data justice training. Everyone's going to go through a training and onboarding process to talk about, well, what is data? What is data justice? And why does that matter in the way we represent information and tell stories about how the city is serving its community members? Because some of this work is also going to focus on a community safety data dashboard, we'll also talk a little bit about like the social determinants of health and really like unpacking like, what does safety even mean? What does an equitable quality of life even look like? And how may that translate over to the way you all as community leaders recommend the city shares data and puts those stories together? So that brings me to the next piece, which is the data dashboard consultation. So like Christine mentioned, there's a variety of different data projects happening right now to centralize all of the different pieces of data that the city has. But we'd be working with the community leads to take a look at the data dashboards they're building, like the community safety data dashboard, and think about, okay, given how it's laid out right now, who does this dashboard currently speak to, but also who does it leave out? And thinking about who it's leaving out in terms of like, well, this data or information isn't really accessible. How would a grassroots CBO use this? How would a disability justice network utilize this information? Really thinking from your specific perspective of the communities you're connected to, we want to get your feedback around how do we make this usable, not just to the typical data experts or even typical folks at the city who may use the information, but also to the community who have a right to access this information and utilize it for their work as well. So we'll talk about what kind of data belongs on there, what kind of language should we add in? Also, what's a way we can make it more visually engaging? Are there photos, videos, right? If we're going to spend all this time and resources on creating a data dashboard, we want it to be usable by a multitude of folks. So that's going to be a big part of the community lead's responsibility. The third bucket of work is leading the design of community engagement efforts. So that could look like coordination and outreach to bring community members into events, to also help them or give them the space to provide feedback on the data dashboards that are being built, to get their feedback about what kind of other information they hope to see from the city. Maybe that looks like designing a series of social media posts or, other forms of communications. But we really want to take the lead from these community leads to figure out what's the best way to include our communities in this conversation. And then the last thing is, well, we want the life and impact of this work to span beyond your contract. And so you'll have dedicated time as a community lead to think about your community organizing strategy. So with all the things you're doing with your community, with all of the things that you're learning about in this data justice work with Smart City PDX, how could you potentially bring these learnings with your community's vision for themselves together to create some sort of long-term impact for your folks, right? Whether that's, thinking of a strategy of, how to connect them to future opportunities, or, thinking about the different like policies and practices that are happening at the city. There's a number of different ways you could take this, but we really want to make sure that there's carved out time for you all to really apply what you're learning here to the communities that you're connected to and serving. So those are the 4 big buckets of work. And then, there's plenty in between and lots of space, I think, for creativity and flexibility. But those are the 4 things that we want to prioritize in collaborating with these community leads this year. So I'm going to go to the last slide, actually, and then I think we're going to open it up. So I'm sure you're wondering, so who are you looking for, right? What does the Smart City PDX team imagine is a strong fit when it comes to the community leads? I'll say the biggest thing we want isn't necessarily formal training or experience in data. What's most important to our team and what we prioritize is that you hold relationships with frontline communities, because that experience, that connection, I think is going to give you a mountain of feedback and expertise that you can share that isn't currently present in the city team that we're working with. So that's a really important technical skill we hope the community leads bring. So maybe that's, you've been a part of a community leadership team, or, you've organized mutual aid before during, COVID. It could look like a number of different things. Maybe you're connected to a church group and you volunteer there every week. Maybe you're volunteering in the schools. Maybe you have a small community improvement project in your neighborhood. It can look like a variety of different things, but I'll say that's going to be a really big priority for our team when we're looking at who's applying to this opportunity. The next thing is, we're also hoping that these folks have experience planning and leading community-centered events. Again, that's like a unique skill set that the community leads can bring that isn't currently present on the city. I mean, we certainly can plan events if we have to, but the most successful events come when the invitation is coming from someone from their own community, right? That says, hey, there's this event. It's designed to speak to us, to lift up our voices, to really honor the feedback that we're going to provide in this process. And then, there's also, because there's a variety of things you're going to be working on throughout the year, we're really looking for folks who can show that they know how to take initiative, that they're not afraid to ask questions, that this is an opportunity that they're really excited about. So they're constantly sharing out ideas. And across those 4 buckets, it is going to be a decent amount of work. So making sure you can manage this work well on top of whatever other responsibilities you already hold. And then we always appreciate folks who are super communicative. There's no such thing as too much communication on this team because there's just so many moving parts. And then, the last thing I'll emphasize again is do not shy away from this experience if you don't have explicit data or consulting experience. The consulting piece, there's, the mentorship that I will go ahead and provide on how you manage your contract with the city and what that actually looks like. And again, there's, purposeful data justice training designed into this opportunity. So really what we want to know is, are you excited to tell the story of your community and to provide a more holistic view on like what safety looks like in the city as well? So that's my spiel there for who we're looking for. Christine or Adil, before we go to Q&A, is there anything else y'all wanted to add? Awesome. Okay. So that was lots of information for our participants here. So we can go to the last slide, which just prompts us to Q&A. And we will go ahead and take questions. So you can either raise your hand. When I see you, Brian, I'll call you in a second. You can either raise your hand if you have a question, or you can type it in the chat and we'll just go in order as we receive things. Awesome. All right, and Adil, should I turn facilitation over to you for Q&A?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Brian, were you first? Brian, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thanks. That was very helpful. Thank you. What about the schedule of meetings, the days, the hours, the process, hybrid? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start this one, Alicia, and then if you want to add. Most of our meetings will be virtual because that makes it super easy. We will talk about and identify if there's opportunities and times that we want to gather in person, if that works for everyone. But that'll be a conversation that we'll have. So primarily meetings will be virtual. We don't have an exact set schedule. We have an estimate of total numbers per month. But it's going to vary. So at the beginning, it's going to be a little heavier in meetings because we have the data justice training and onboarding. So when we go to the interview phase after we review RFQ applications or submissions, we will try to give everyone at that stage a heads up when we think the first set of meetings will happen, because we want to make sure we can find a time that works for everyone. From there, once we are kind of in our first meeting, we're finding a time that works for everyone, we'll always discuss that next timing to make sure it's working for folks' calendar. So we will be flexible. We will look for things if everyone needs to meet during mornings is better versus afternoon. Do we need to switch it up depending on people's schedule? So we're totally open to that, to make that flexible. We'll also be really cognizant of not everything needs to happen in a meeting. So we want that time to be effective and engaging and building relationships. But if there is specific work that needs to be done through email or a shared document, because we're reviewing, we're brainstorming and throwing ideas, we will use tools like that as well to make sure we're getting work done in between meetings. Alicia, do you want to add on to that?
No, that sounds right, Christine. We're fairly flexible. We try to meet the schedule of everyone who's involved, which, it's a little bit of Tetris putting everyone's calendars together. But yeah, primarily hybrid. We'll have some in-person meetings like Christine shared. And I would say, at minimum, we're probably meeting at least once a month, maybe twice a month as a team, but that just really depends on the project and the availability of everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Tom, do you want to go next?
Sure. Excuse me. I'm Tom. I come in from the disability angle on this. I work for PBOT. I also do a lot of work with Adaptive Bike Town, which gives handicap bicycles or lets people use them for free. The disability community in Portland is extremely well organized. And having reached out to them as someone from the city, their first thing is, can you give us money? Can you give us things that we can't, like printing, something that costs them money? So they're not looking to reinvent the wheel or, organizing more. They're like, and I know this has happened. They're like, what is my relationship with the city? How is that helping us? So what would a good response to those communities like White Cane and the Oregon Adaptive Sports, things like that?
Yeah, so Tom, I think just to be really clear, in this program, the time of the community leads is paid. So this is a consulting position. So anybody that would participate as an individual and representing and bringing information back to that community would be compensated for their time. These are billable hours. And that's why we have that estimate of total hours and an amount not to exceed across the whole project program. We do have some funding as well for the community engagement events that will be part of the program. So we are thinking about that and responding to that feedback to make sure that we have funding for space rentals, food, and we will work within our City of Portland policies about compensation for that meeting time, as well as we have larger events as well. So that's the type of funding we have from this current project.
Perfect. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And then I see the question in the chat. MK asked, for how much detail is the selection committee looking for? Should the statement of interest generally stay beyond a page?
That's a great question. I mean, we definitely, don't make it longer than 2 pages, right? Because we're going to be reading a bulk of applications there. I think the detail that we want to see, I'm just pulling up the language of the RFQ, so I'm in alignment with it. We're really going to want to know like what your specific interest is in this data justice work, in this community leads work, especially if maybe like your resume doesn't formally show what your experience or connection is. I always suggest to folks like the cover letter then, or the statement of interest, is the opportunity for you to tell that story, right? Things that we won't see on your resume about community work you're doing and what your vision is for why you're interested in data justice and how you're already working with, one of the impacted communities that the RFQ mentions. So, I recognize that's just a repeat of what's there on the RFQ, but that's the guidance we can share so far. Christine, I don't know if you have anything additional to add to that though, in terms of guidance for folks as they're writing their statements.
No, we were trying to be intentional about keeping this pretty simple and direct. So we really want to know the answers to those 2 things and how you all would describe it. So I'm just emphasizing what Alicia said.
And Adele, I think there was a question before that too from Daniela in the chat, if we want to do that and then go to Greg.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I missed it. Yeah, so Danielle asked, how many folks are y'all looking to bring on? Are there alternative ways to apply, or does it have to be written responses?
So we are aiming for 3 community leads. We will take a look at applications and think about the team that we're putting together. So I think if you've read through the RFQ, you see they're also one of those qualities is working together on a team, both as a cohort and then across our whole city team. So we're looking for about 3. Right now, we don't have any alternative way to apply. We just have the written response. But Daniela, if you wanted to connect with us afterwards to talk about that, or Alicia, if you had any thoughts to add right now.
I don't, but I'm happy to connect with you one-on-one, Daniela, to figure out how we can make the process accessible if it currently isn't. Yes, always open to that. Thank you for asking.
Perfect. And then Greg, do you want to share your question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for putting this on. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm looking at it. Basically, I'm always involved with our industrial neighborhood association, and just want to see where this was going. As far as I appreciate you guys actually pursuing a strong data acquisition and Internet of Thing type collection of real-time data. I think that's great. I think a lot of smart cities are really focusing on that, and I'm glad to see Portland's doing it as well. So my perspective right now is really just looking at communication with this data. Do you anticipate other bureaus, or does this actually fall under a bureau right now of management? And what is that? And then where do you see the other bureaus using this? I mean, I'd say it could be a very valuable tool for BPS or even emergency management. As helpful information. Is that where this would go down the road?
Yeah, so Smart City PDX, our program is actually in the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And a couple of these projects are very, very collaborative. City data governance is citywide, so we work with every bureau and office across the city. Similar with our rescue plan data and equity strategies work, almost every bureau and office has a American Rescue Plan Act project. So we work with teams across the city. The Community Safety Data Project, which the focus of some of these data dashboards will be, and some of the data governance policies. That's a chance that the community leads would interact and kind of understand what's happening across the city. And the Community Safety Data Project is a collaborative project with the community safety division. So we have a close project team and folks would be integrated with that team. We also have partners in Bureau of Technology Services because we have infrastructure that we're building for these data aspects. But of course, we have a lot of experts and analysts and program managers that we work with across the spectrum of community safety. So that is the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. It is police, it is fire and rescue, community safety division, park rangers. So there's a lot of different groups that we work collaboratively with.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. And then there is a question in the chat from MK again. I can go ahead and read this. So they ask, what if you see your community as together but also segmented? For example, neurodivergent can be categorized as neurodivergent adults, family and friends of those who are neurodivergent people, and professionals working with neurodivergent people. Would the community leader address all three together? The interest overlaps, but there is some differences.
Yeah, I can jump in and answer that question. I think we'll work with the community leads. Like one of the things that you'll do as you start to develop your community organizing strategy is to create a profile of your community. One, so the city team and the other community leads can learn about who you're connected to, who you really have in mind as you do this work. But also to help you do some prioritizing, right? I'll say it's really going to be up to the community leads to decide like what community perspective they're bringing in. I always recommend, and this is my personal recommendation, with the limited amount of time that there is, focusing on frontline communities, so those most impacted. So like in your example, MK, I would think we'd want to focus that feedback and that connection on the neurodivergent individuals themselves who are maybe rarely represented in data, or like there's challenges for them accessing the current data that is public or that is out there. Just because I'll also say it's a lot of work and the time's going to go by super fast. And, you know, there's just so many intersections and various experiences even within a particular community. So I think the more focus you can get on who's the ideal person you're really trying to reach in this work, I think it's going to feel more manageable, honestly. Because again, like we're just going to be throwing so much at the community leads, as exciting as the work is. So that's just, you know, my take on it. But Christine, did you have anything to add to that?
We will be here to help with the focus work plan as well. And I think this is a place where also working with your fellow leads in the cohort will also get some support and help. And so it's not like a decision that needs to be made right now, like you'll have some support in that. And we're always trying to improve, like focus on our work plan, making sure this is an effective and meaningful experience for everyone too. So we'll be there to help.
Perfect. And then Brian, do you want to share your question?
Yes. How would you characterize the decision-making of this role? Would you say the community lead is advisory with staff making final decisions? Would you say that that community leads have a decision-making role, that there's a voting that takes place and a, consensus agreement? You tell me about how you envision that dimension.
Yeah, Alicia, I could start and then pass it to you. So we try to be pretty explicit that this is not an advisory role. You are brought on as a consultant. So we want you to be actively bringing recommendations, ideas, and you are actively making decisions with our team. That'll be our job when we're kind of presenting the different buckets of work and things that we're working on, to be really clear and upfront about like if there are already decisions that have been made, because we do have a city data governance committee that is making certain decisions about policies. We'll be very clear and upfront. This decision has already been made. Here are the decisions that are left where we can bring your voice in and let's have some change into the direction that we're going. So that will be really important for us to always lay that out really clearly. But yes, there is decision making. What we've found is that in the past, the decision making from our leads and really being this very active collaborative team, because you are coming in and being a part of our team, it's not separate. You'll have other kind of relationships that you're building there too, but have changed outcomes of our policy documents, have changed outcomes and the way that we actually implemented processes to create policies, and then absolutely changed our data products. So some of the things like the Rescue Plan Open Data Portal, it would have looked very differently if that was designed just by city staff and community leads were not in the project with us, making decisions with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Christine shared and add, like, again, I think it's gonna really vary on some of the conditions, right? Or like the context of like what team you're working with, if they already have a formal decision-making process. But we, like Christine said, very much introduce and set the community leads up as consultant experts. They have experience and connection and perspective to communities that city staff currently don't. And so that's why we really lift up the community leads model. But in terms of like the work that happens internally with the community leads, I'll emphasize that's where a lot of the decision-making power is. Like, I work with the community leads to draft up your final evaluation and report and set of recommendations to the city. And the community leads are the ones who approve that to ensure that like your explicit feedback is in there, you know, and it's not sanitized in a way that, you know, doesn't actually reflect the heart of what you're trying to share in your recommendations. And then of course we follow, you know, the leadership of the community leads when it comes to how they want to spend their time, what your work plans look like, anything that has to do with your actual like planning, and the documents that you share out explicitly as community leads, like that is within your decision-making power as a consultant.
One
And
quick follow-up does, thank you, that helps a lot. Do
Yeah.
any of the decisions or policies that you envision creating have to go to city council for approval?
So I'm trying to think. I mean, I want to say nothing specific right now that is in the work plan, but we also be prepared to be flexible and responsive to what might come up in our project. Some of the policies and ideas around some of the data governance practices, we have a committee that has authority to make those decisions. And a lot of those are best practices documents and things that go into the administrative roles. You'll get onboarding to all these types of backgrounds if we're going this route. And technically at this point, because of that authority that's been established, there does not have to be a report, something that goes before council before adopting certain things. But sometimes we want to bring things in front of council. So there could be something, but at least in the current buckets of work, focusing on that dashboard, consulting, our community engagement events, and some of our data governance processes, we do not have plans right now for bringing those things to council.
Got it. Thank you.
Lou, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Hi, all. Thank you so much for this presentation. I am in the office, as you can tell, but I was kind of coming in and out, so I'm sorry if you're going to make you repeat anything. I just wanted a little more clarity on the work that is expected from community leads. So from what I'm understanding, we'd be reviewing, data dashboards, maybe making some sort of recommendations on better practices as for future data gathering and also distribution and education in our communities. And then afterwards, also throwing events that would help us, educate our communities on the importance of this data. And I heard a lot about safety. And so what is safety? What kind of safety are we looking at? And then was I correct in how I'm thinking we're going to be moving along, like the kind of work we're trying to do? So just wanted a little more clarity on that.
Okay. Yeah, so one bucket of work that I just want to also kind of note is the data justice training and some of the onboarding. So those are kind of meetings, time that we're doing for relationship building as well. So that's another piece of work that we want to make sure is represented. Another piece of work is the community organizing strategy. And that there would be built-in time across the year to develop and work on that for reviews and guidance. So that's another deliverable that we were looking for as part of the work. Your questions about community safety, and what is safety are things that we want to get into in these design sessions. So that is a part of the work, and will be really, really important, valuable conversations in how we tell stories, how we talk about data that we have, that we don't have, and then, yeah, what are those next steps to really build a valuable product?
Okay, and then one just follow-up question. Each of the community leads will have most likely a community or several communities they serve and they're focusing on. Would we be collectively working on these events for each of our communities together, or is it kind of like you would take ownership of the community that you serve and putting on your, when you do your community strategy?
Yeah, great question. I can take that one, Christine, just reflecting on our experience last time. So last time we had the community leads cohort, they all had very distinct communities that they serve, right? And there's different cultural practices, there's different language access needs. So we had them coordinate the events separately, and it was like 6 of them all within a span of a month and a half. And I'll just say that it was intense. So we're not necessarily trying to go that route. This year, we're trying to go into a little bit more of a collaborative amount, maybe do more of like 2 or 3 events. So you'd certainly potentially be working with the other community leads to think about for the specific communities that the community leads, for the specific communities that these folks collectively serve, how can we make the most accessible event? Knowing that we're not going to be able to reach every single community, but the particular communities they're connected to, we really want to center in event design and engagement. So we're looking to reduce that number because we also, we want you to still have, energy by the end of your contract. Good question, though.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions from folks? Oh, there's a question in the chat about if there's some written examples from 2 years ago. Could you be a little more specific what you mean by written examples? Are you talking in reference to the applications or?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have permission from anybody to share examples from past applications. So we don't have any to share. But and that's something we can think about for kind of future iterations to be more prepared about if we did get permission and somebody was open to sharing that as an example, but unfortunately we won't have that ready for this year.
Okay, thanks.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, at least right now, I think we can go to that last slide, Christine. Daniela does have a question. Could there be bigger cohort/groups in the future? Potentially. I think it depends on a number of factors, which I'm sure Christine and Adil can speak to, whether it's, budget approval, right, from City Council to continue this type of work, what the success of this recent cohort is, what the current political context is. All of those factors really shape how much funding is determined for a priority or for a program like this. And then, depending on the timing of passage of those things, that helps us determine as a team, well, how many folks can we equitably engage so that they have a good experience and we're still getting to the level of depth that's needed. Does that sound right to you, Christine? I don't want to misspeak for the city.
No, absolutely. The only thing I would add is that you will have a chance to contribute to that documentation about the model. How did it go? What did we produce? What impact did it have? And that's part of what we use to then make the pitch that, hey, we should fund this again and keep it going and keep evolving. And we want to keep learning from every iteration. So I just want to note that there's really active spaces in the year for you to contribute and share. That also means sharing about what isn't working so we can potentially fix things as we go along and be responsive to that.
Thanks, Christine. So I'll just end with, sorry, I did not mean to cause panic here. I left out the date on the deadline. It's not due at 5 p.m. today. So your responses, if you are interested in this opportunity, it's going to be Thursday, September 14th at 5 p.m. And you're going to email admin@aliciamakaisa.com. And then just a reminder, again, this information is in the RFQ, but what we're looking for is a statement of interest that's no more than 2 pages to share why you're interested in this opportunity. If y'all do end up having any questions, any additional questions, my email and Christine's email is on the RFQ, so you're welcome to reach out to either of us if you need any more clarification as you're preparing your application. Christine or Adil, anything else to add before we close?
We are so excited to learn more about you and encourage you to apply. And we look forward to next steps.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. We will get this recording posted if you need to refer back to it later. Otherwise, I just echo Christine's gratitude. Thank you all for even being interested in this opportunity. We're so excited about the potential to work with y'all. So take care and enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye, folks.